So nearly 75,000 people have already voted early in the Nevada Democratic Caucus, which lasted from February 15th to the 18th. That was the early voting period. Now, the official caucus day is tomorrow, as the rest of the country braces for the second attempt at a caucus this cycle.
Huff Post reporter Daniel Marans joins us now via Skype with his thoughts on the 2020 race in the Nevada Caucus. Dan, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm good. I got my campaign beard going here. It's
nice.
Campaign beard.
You and Pete. Pete had that same thing going this week.
There you go. Dan, you're on the ground there in Las Vegas. You spent some time with Bernie and the team while they were going out organizing, canvassing. Tell us a little bit about what that experience is like. Is the campaign's promise of expanding the electorate actually promising to work out or no?
So, of course, it's unscientific based on one visit out there, but I thought it was pretty interesting what I did see. So I went out to East Las Vegas. I went out to Bernie Sanders' field office there, which really kind of has sort of a Latino cultural vibe. There are these sort of multicolored flags. There's like Latin music playing. There's a United Farm Workers poster. And I ended up going out following a canvasser who is visiting from New York City. And our first stop was a place called the Leftist Garage, where Las Vegas Democratic Socialists for America are coordinating with the Bernie campaign. They have a lot of things that you might typically associate with sort of an ideologically left-wing space there, but you then pick up material that is sort of the standard Bernie material. It's multilingual. And we went out into a very working class, sort of multiracial neighborhood. I found that in the course of, let's say, going to a dozen houses, there were a lot of people who had already been contacted. So again, you were at the stage there that suggested to me that there has been a lot of contact in these working class East Las Vegas neighborhoods. Many people, they're out there, they're either operating based on existing familiarity with people like Biden. I did meet a lot of voters who said that they had seen Steyer ads on TV. And it was very interesting. We met one guy, the first guy who we spoke to at the doors. His name was literally Rod Stewart, no relation. And he said, I was just watching AOC talking about Bernie on The View today. Yeah, I would love to caucus for him. What's the information that I need? And I was there with sort of the Latino outreach director for Nevada and of course this volunteer. And the young woman who's running the Latino outreach in Nevada said to him, "Who are the other people that you're considering?" And he said, "Well, I was considering Biden and Klobuchar."
Right.
And she said, "Well, I would encourage you to think about the policies. What policies matter to you?" And he was there on the policies, but it was interesting to me, of course, that wasn't necessarily conflicting or contradictory in terms of his thinking about how he was thinking about the candidates.
Well, it's so different. I mean, if you just watch cable news, you'd think that voters are completely ideological, that there's a liberal lane and there's a moderate lane, when in reality, that's not how it works at all. I mean, we've seen poll after poll that shows Biden voters' second choice is Bernie Sanders. Oftentimes, Bernie Sanders voters move between him and Biden. So it's not the way that people think about this at all, which is just interesting to hear that directly from folks there on the ground. What were the concerns that you heard at the doors about Bernie and his campaign?
Well, I would say, more than concerns, there were certainly people for whom, in this particular neighborhood, the decision wasn't a question of Bernie or somebody else, but Bernie or no one, honestly. There were people whom this was their first time voting. I mean, we ran into a guy who was literally coming off of a construction work site. He's been a citizen for 10 or 12 years. He had said that he was saying to the volunteer with whom I was, he was talking to him in Spanish. The volunteer I was with speaks Spanish. And he said, my sons have told me that they're into Bernie, and and he was saying this in Spanish, and I have enough Spanish, and the guy was translating it for me, and he's like, yeah, I think I'll go. I have to make sure it works in terms of when I get off of the construction site and everything like that. But I'm into it. And then he started, frankly, making kind of like sexist jokes, like, will there be women at the polls, that kind of thing. I mean, but it was totally a joke. But he was kind of busting balls, for lack of a better term. There was a young man standing by his car who had just moved to Las Vegas from LA. He was sort of a forklift operator, and he was a 28-year-old guy. He's split up from the mother of his kids, but he's got 4 kids. And he was sort of like, I think the whole system is screwed. I've never voted before. And literally, I'm here with a volunteer who has a pin with a sort of cartoonish image of Karl Marx on his jean jacket lapel, and has the Las Vegas DSA material if people want it, right? but he's not really talking about that.
Yeah.
He's sort of saying, let me tell you, you're disaffected, you're dissatisfied with the system. Can I get you to fill out this card, and we'll reach out to you, and I think that I have somebody for you. Who you might want to consider, even if you think all politicians are full of it.
It's so interesting to hear. I mean, the real, what it's actually like to I've done it before. I mean, to go out there and actually canvass with regular voters, it's not really something you could teach off of a script. We'd be remiss, Dan. I mean, we should talk about some of these other candidates. What are you seeing and hearing on the ground? What I'm really interested in, Crystal and I are interested in, is the race for number 2. Who's going to come in second? Yeah. Biden has got some decent amount of soft support there. Didn't have a horrible debate. Didn't do great either. Do you think he might be able to hold on? Because I think a number 2 win for him, or a number 2 showing for him, is not bad.
Right. So I obviously think that there are 3 people truly in contention for that. I think that I never sleep on Buttigieg because even in a state like this where there are high stakes for him to show that he has that appeal with non-white voters, which frankly, in this case, are generally a good sort of substitute for working class voters as well in the Democratic side, especially in a state like Nevada. But he's just got a super disciplined operation. He has a lot of. He also has I think his headquarters are also in heavily Latino working class East Las Vegas as well. So again, I don't want to sleep on him, and he has really sort of, where he was before saying that he's kind of the perfect Goldilocks candidate between Biden and Bernie. He's now switched Biden out for Bloomberg.
Yeah.
We saw that in the debate 2 nights ago. That basically he's and he's really sort of like many of these candidates tried to appeal to some of these labor union members, saying, "I'll keep your union healthcare plan." I do think that if some of those culinary union members who have heard from their union, and my sense again is that the people for whom that pitch is going to be most effective from the culinary union, that Medicare for all is a threat to their health care plan, the people for whom that they take that seriously are the ones that are more politically involved in the union, because I have spoken to a lot of union members who are like, oh yeah, the union sends me their flyer, I don't totally pay attention to it, and so for example, I just filed a story that's sort of about the whole labor dynamics here, and it's not yet up because there's a backlog in the morning with the editing. But I was literally in the Culinary Union Hall headquarters on Tuesday night, where Klobuchar and Warren were giving their speeches, and I was speaking to some of the union activists who were in the room there, and a lot of them were really aware that. And these are it was all women, and some of them were literally wearing their hotel uniforms, coming in from a shift, everything like that. Yeah. And they were like, they were saying to me, I have heard from my union that I think that will probably go to Biden, because I think that's just sort of the gut thing. If you don't.
And so you think Bernie, Biden, and what's the other camp that you take seriously in the state? Is it Pete or Warren?
So I said second place, Buttigieg, Biden, and I would also say Warren. And yesterday, I went out to an event that was sort of a panel discussion focused on Black women's issues. I would say it was a mostly middle-class Black crowd at this theater in the Vegas Arts District. And I spoke to 8 or 9 people who had either seen the debate live. My goal was to see whether the debate, where Warren, I think, objectively had a very strong performance, whether that would move the needle. And from my tiny little focus group over there, it didn't really. I spoke to this young woman who I thought was like really representative in this regard. She's actually a pharmaceutical salesman. She called herself like sort of an older millennial. So she's like 38, 6 or 38. And she said, I know friends that are way down by student debt. I find Bernie's pitch really appealing. I loved how Warren went after Bloomberg, she said, but I got to go with Biden because he's most electable.
Huh. So that's so interesting.
Dan, that's what I love about what you're bringing here is the reality of what it's actually like to talk to voters and the way that they switch between candidates.
Yeah,
this is great, really great insight.
So important. Dan, thank you so much for the great reporting on the ground there. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and I hope to have something more concrete to report back after the results come out.
Sounds good. Everybody go follow him on Twitter. Everybody go follow him on Twitter.
All right, coming up, new polling shows Bernie Sanders has bested his opponents by almost double in Nevada going into that critical site.
Panel is here next to tell us what candidates need to do to break out in the pretty unpredictable race. That's next.